And Chris, we are live here on YouTube, the Big Blue View YouTube page. Just about to give our quick synopsis on the day 3 selections of the New York Giants. A lot of developmental pieces here, Chris.
Yeah, this day of the draft, it's really about finding guys you can develop, guys who have traits that you can work into being contributors at some point. I don't know how many of these guys are going to be seeing the field a whole lot this year, but hopefully they'll be seeing the field a lot next year and beyond.
Yeah, I think they're just getting these guys on the roster so the positional coaches can have them. They can groom them for next season. And we could start right there. I mean, after the Cordell Flott pick yesterday, we started with 2 picks that were almost back-to-back at 112 and 114. And the Giants land, I think, a very interesting tight end in Daniel Bellinger out of San Diego State. And then Dane Belton, someone we haven't really discussed much about out of Iowa, a defensive back. Chris, what were your thoughts for those kind of back-to-back picks right there?
First off, they really shouldn't have drafted guys whose names were this close because it's going to be real easy to get them confused or mixed up. We might talk about Dane Bellinger and Daniel Belton. I don't know. But I will say Bellinger, the tight end, I got kind of Kevin Boss vibes watching him. Yeah, he's got good size, about 6'4" and change, almost 6'5", 253-ish, good long arms, big hands. I thought he was a pretty good blocker, which considering how much San Diego State ran the ball, he should be a good blocker. And I think he does have some upside down the field as a receiver. I don't know if he's going to be a, stretch the field dynamic weapon as a receiving tight end, but he's got better athleticism than I think a lot of people thought. And, eventually once he clears up some, just technical issues, gets better at that side of the game, I think he could be a useful, complete tight end.
So I've seen one game of Daniel Bellinger and a little bit more than that, I guess. I didn't see someone who was overly sudden. And like you said, I don't think he's going to be the field stretching Greg Dulcich type of tight end. And I don't think that's why the New York Giants selected him. This is somebody who's physical at the point of attack. I think he's one of the better run blockers, like you said, coming out of San Diego State in the draft at the tight end position. I saw someone with really, really good core strength. And I also loved how he took defenders who were aligned on his outside edge and torqued them out of these B gap or the C gap type runs. That's something that I saw pretty consistently on his film. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, he took really good use of angles, and he wasn't going to be moving these guys off the ball, like just blowing them up the way, say, Gronk has done throughout his career. But I like the way he used his positioning, his angles to kind of keep them away from the running lane. Yeah, I think he could get a little bit better with his hand usage, get better with his leverage. But all in all, I thought he had almost a little bit of offensive tackle to his game in the way he moved and approached his blocks.
That's the thing I'm most excited about, and I don't know how much he'll be used. He could end up starting. I don't probably think that because the tight end position, the transition is so difficult in their first year in the NFL. So he has a good kind of situation where he can develop behind Ricky Seals-Jones, behind Jordan Akins, and also be used in some 12 personnel packages, which I don't expect to see much 12 personnel if we're going to be honest. But this is also a player who, like you said, good size, 6'4", 253 pounds. He ran a 4.47 20-yard shuttle, which wasn't great, but his 3-cone was in the 75th percentile, just over 7 seconds. He did 22 reps on the bench, which was 67th percentile, and his broad jump was 125 inches. That's over 10 feet. That's 94th percentile with a 69th percentile vert at 34, and he ran a 4.63. Now, all of those athletic testing numbers, they're mostly pretty good. I didn't think I saw somebody who was overly explosive, though, as I brought up. I don't know if I saw 4.63 on his film, but that's still a work in progress right there. It's something that this coaching staff could hopefully leverage. And if you watched San Diego State, too, how many times did they use the RPO, go into the mesh point, and then leak the backside H-back into the flat and throw it to Daniel Bellinger and try to create a seal with a bunch of blockers? So he was a part of the passing attack and those quick screens. I can also see that being implemented with the direction of the Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka offense here. I think there's going to be a lot of quick hitting plays. Now, a lot of those plays are going to go to Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney more so than Daniel Bellinger, but I can see a couple of them being deceptive and going in his direction.
Yeah, I could see that as well, where maybe you send one of the receivers into motion, get the defense flowing the other way, leak a player like Bellinger or Ricky Seals-Jones or one of these other kind of athletic-ish tight ends and get the ball out quickly on the backside where the defense kind of isn't looking. Yeah, I do agree he isn't super sudden. I don't want to say he's a plodding runner because he's not, but the word that kind of came to my mind was rolling, where his breaks were kind of rounded off. He wasn't super sudden off the line of scrimmage, but once he got moving, he moved pretty well, if that kind of makes sense.
I think rolling makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I understand where you're going with that. But I think we should transition, Chris, to Dane Belton, defensive back, safety out of Iowa, played a lot of slot, kind of a versatile piece for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I liked what I saw from Belton, but there were also a lot of mistakes in terms of blown coverages and things of that nature, which I kind of think is somewhat of a product of Iowa's defense, which bait a lot of offenses into throwing picks. Because if you watch Belton, how many times was he on, say, the number 2 wide receiver, and then he would pass the number 2 wide receiver off, sometimes not to somebody who was necessarily close, but he did that in order to bait the quarterback to throw the dig that was behind him, and then he would undercut that dig and come away with a PBU or an interception. It shows really good processing, also a product of the system, though, and it also got him in trouble. So one of my favorite things about Dane Belton is kind of also something that can be exploited at the next level.
Yeah, and what I noticed with Belton, and I think this is somewhere we could talk about the 5th round pick as well, Micah Mcfadden, the first 5th round pick, not because there were 3 of them, and that is how well he played going forwards. Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that Bellinger would be something like a star in Wink Martindale's.
You just did
star.
it. You just did it. You called him Bellinger.
You
said that in the beginning.
I know I did. I think Joe Shane hates me between just utterly blowing up all of our big boards, making most of my scouting reports irrelevant for the Giants, and then getting these 2 guys, having them right back to back. Okay, so Dane Belton and Micah Mcfadden, they could have Belton as kind of like a star or money backer, where he's playing in those shallow coverage zones, coming downhill a lot, playing against tight ends, playing against running backs, and also blitzing into the backfield, because that's also something that Mcfadden does very well. He had, what was it, 12 and a half sacks and 20 some tackles for a loss over the last 2 years, one of which was only 8 games. So I could see Wink Martindale saying, I want guys that I can blitz. He could use Julian Love. He can use Xavier McKinney as deep safeties, for 2-man or cover 1 shells, but have a guy like Belton there as that strong box safety, hybrid linebacker, however they want to describe it within their scheme, within their verbiage, and just send him downhill into the backfield after quarterbacks.
I watched his Illinois tape, and I feel like that was a good microcosm of what I expect Dane Belton to be. I need to watch a little bit more, but he had a couple interceptions and plays where he came off routes and would undercut the backside crosser, making an acrobatic interception, and you're like, oh, wow, that's impressive. And then down in the red zone, he completely neglected to cover his assignment as the number 3 in an empty set, leading to an easy touchdown by the Fighting Illini. I think mistakes are something that's on his film. I felt like he's really athletic. I think he is physical when he's coming downhill, but there were times where he would kind of fill the alley and you're like, okay, this is going to be a tackle. And then he would go low, and for whatever reason, he just wouldn't complete the tackle. He broke down and he stayed square, but it just felt like there were times where he didn't drive through the contact like you would necessarily see sometimes from those uber aggressive dudes. And maybe that's one reason why he ended up having double-digit percentage-wise missed tackles in college, because I actually see him make really good tackles, though. It's not necessarily consistent that he's bad at it. That's why I feel like there are frustrating elements to his game. I don't hate the pick, though, because I see the upside.
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring that up. I personally wonder if it might not be like a little bit of hip tightness or something like that, where an offensive player moves just enough and that it throws off his angle where he can't make a good form tackle. Because I saw him whiff on a couple blocks. I believe I was watching the Iowa State game where he had a offensive player just dead to rights in the backfield and went to tackle him, just kind of slid off, and the offensive player didn't. Yeah, he didn't make this great stop, start, juke, almost Madden like move. It was just a very subtle move, and Belton couldn't compensate. So yeah, I agree with you. He is a really athletic guy, but I think he might be a little bit more of a linear athlete than what we see from the really elite safeties.
And I also think his coverage is a little bit better when he is further away from the line of scrimmage, because there were times when Iowa would align him in press and his feet got stuck in the mud. He didn't keep his feet bouncy. He didn't have that kind of spring in his step like you see with a Cordell Flott, and then that would allow the wide receiver to just go around and stack on top of him. But I don't want to sit here and just point out the negative, because I actually do like the pick and I do understand where they're coming from the pick, or with this pick. I think there is good tape out there, and we're going to have more in-depth breakdowns on Big Blue View about Dane Belton, the things that he's going to offer. You just watch some of his interceptions, you can see a high processor in terms of understanding route concepts and baiting quarterbacks. Again, product of Iowa's system. But let's move on, Chris, to the first fifth-round pick, which was Indiana linebacker Micah Mcfadden. Now, I like this pick because this is somebody, dude, who reminds me of a poor man's Leo Chanel, because he was used a lot in terms of pressuring coming downhill. He had a couple huge plays against, I think one was against Michigan State on the first drive, where it was a 3rd and 1, and he just clicked and just went downhill and just had a tackle for a loss right at the snap. Excellent timing, stayed square, delivers really, really punishing type of hits. And I don't think the Giants are necessarily going to have to rely on him in year one, but I do think you can put him into one of these unique type of packages that Wink Martindale employs. And then you have this guy who can blitz, he can drop into coverage and carry some routes. He almost had a PBU carrying the number 2 up the middle of the field against Ohio State, against Chris Olave. It would have been so impressive, but the throw by CJ Stroud was just too good that it just missed him. But I still think he's a damn good athlete. He's just a little bit undersized, but I like this value here.
Yeah, this pick kind of reminds me of Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown from, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? 2 years ago, where he is a guy, he has tools that can be very useful if you get him in the right situations. And I think just as a third wave of pass rushers, guys that the Giants can rotate onto the field for blitz packages, Mcfadden does definitely have upside there. I'm not sure if I would want him, being the heir apparent for Blake Martinez at Mike, but as a guy you bring on the field in, 3rd and forever, and maybe drop Kayvon Thibodeau into coverage and then rush Mcfadden, where what offense is going to really expect to see that? He's got good instincts rushing the passer. He's good. He's got a good ability to drive downfield into the backfield, and he can absolutely be disruptive.
Yeah, and he's a low tackler too. He always goes for the ankles, which is something that I appreciate, and has that quick trigger to come downhill. That play too against Michigan State was against Kenneth Walker. That's big, powerful dude who makes guys miss in a phone booth all the time. Big, high leverage situation. So from everything that I've seen from him, I expect to like him probably a solid amount. Now the question is going to be: is he going to be able to start next to Blake Martinez over Tay Crowder, somebody that I'm not necessarily thrilled with? I think Tay Crowder's biggest issue is he's never really knows where to be. He's never really trusts his keys, and he's always kind of not always, but he's out of position more than I would necessarily like. Mcfadden, from what I've seen, still need to watch a little bit more. He seems to be in position, scrapes over the top of blocks, positions himself pretty well, but I'm going to hold off on declaring that for certain because I'm not 100% sure. And Kayla left us a comment, Chris. Hey, guys, great draft by the Giants. Yes. A lot of developmental picks, Kayla, and we're hoping that they hit, and by 2023, we get a bunch of starters here. That would be excellent. But I'm sorry, Chris, for cutting you off there.
No, I was going to say that I actually think that is a really good segue. It's like we do talk about these guys' strengths, we talk about the weaknesses, but these are mid to late round draft picks where I think the Giants are looking to get guys that they can groom to see the field in 2023 and beyond. This is about positioning them to start taking strides and having a really deep roster once they basically get their salary cap figured out.
Yeah, and I think we can transition probably now to the second fifth round pick, which is a position that I felt like they needed to address at some point in this draft, and they did with a 324-pound dude who's a little bit over 6'3", and DJ Davidson out of Arizona State. I guess he kind of looks like Pat Mahomes in the video that was put out by the New York Giants. And I got to be honest, I don't have that much on Davidson. I haven't watched a lot of ASU defense, so I'm gonna have to get to that. I've seen some highlights. It seems like he flashes really quick hands, and he has the grip strength in the hand power and the pop to separate really quickly. And he also, the one play that really came to my mind was the Stanford play where he was over the nose and he just shed the center so quickly with a quick arm over and then pursued the running back and ended up making a pretty impressive tackle down the line of scrimmage. I don't have too much else on DJ Davidson, but we will in the coming days.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to watch him either. Yeah, from what I understand, he is a nose tackle. He is big, he is powerful, and he has the ability to just kind of hold up in the middle of the defense, control the A gaps, which is really what the Giants need. They've got Justin Ellis, but not much other than that. So hopefully Davidson will be able to develop. I had been looking at guys like John Ridgway out of Arkansas, Tito Ogbonna out of UCLA for nose tackles. I was expecting the Giants to draft one, but just not this one, which that's kind of what happened this year.
So we got a question from our guy Brian Borginus is how I'm going to pronounce it. I could be wrong there. Hey guys, big fan of your content. Thank you. Besides Thibodeau and Neal, who do you think will have the biggest impact on the upcoming season? Now, I'm going to eliminate Wan'Dale Robinson from this as well, because I think, and we've heard Joe Shane, Brian Dable say this to Robinson, they have a specific plan for him in place for an impact early on. So from Ezeudu down, who do you think will have the biggest impact in 2022?
I honestly think it might be Ezeudu if he can take a starting job. Maybe look for him to be in direct competition for that left guard spot. The Giants' the third, fifth round pick might be in competition for the right guard spot. I'm not sure if I see him winning that competition or not, but Ezeudu, he can move all over the field. So even if he doesn't win the starting left guard spot, which a starting offensive lineman is an impact player, but having a guy who can play 4 out of the 5 positions, injuries happen. Giants fans know that all too well, and having a guy who could be like a Kevin Booth who could step in a pinch, that could potentially save you a game.
Yes, and I'm going to remove Ezeudu and Flott from this conversation and now just focus on the day 3 guys. And we haven't gone over Mckeithen or Beavers yet, but I think the biggest impact out of the day 3 guys, it's between Bellinger and Belton for me, and not just because they're the highest draft capital, but when you look at the Giants secondary right now, they have some holes in the secondary. They don't have a lot of guys on the roster now. They could bring UDFAs in, but I think they're going to use Dane Belton as that star type of position. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, Chris. The Giants and Wink Martindale, they're going to use every bit of defensive personnel that they have in their rotation. They're not just going to be special teams guys on the roster, the Nate Ebners of the world. So I think we're going to see significant snaps from someone like a Dane Belton, like not, every down type of stuff, but there's going to be packages where they're going to feature him and you can align him in the box. And he's versatile enough to do a lot of different things and athletic enough to do a lot of different things. So I think I would probably go with Dane Belton, but I am interested in that final pick as well, which we'll go over in a little bit.
Yeah. So you don't think Giants legend Nate Ebner is going to be there?
No, I don't. He might be playing rugby somewhere, which I would wish him the best of luck.
Absolutely. So last 2 picks, Marcus Mckeithen, right guard from North Carolina. This is a big dude. Like he is, I believe he's an inch shorter than Evan Neal, 3 pounds heavier, and his arms are 1.5 inches longer. He doesn't have anything like Evan Neal's movement skills, but talk about a big, powerful dude. Yeah, at the very least, he gives you somebody who can compete for that right guard spot, especially if the Giants want to run a downhill rushing attack, which I could kind of see them going for, especially with all the talk we've seen about RPOs, bubble screens, just catch and run opportunities. You spread the defense out, get them into really light sub packages to deal with maybe even a 10 personnel passing game. And then you run downhill. That's basically an air raid offense right there.
Yeah, Mckeithen is interesting. I think he is purely developmental. I don't think he's going to be a starter unless a lot of injuries fall on the New York Giants right now because, hey, ladies and gentlemen, the Giants have some depth along their offensive line. So that is something that we're going to love. But I will say this about Mckeithen. After going through a Zudu film last night, he popped to me in the sense that he's gigantic. He's powerful and strong, but he also fires out of his stance kind of low in certain situations. There were times where he kept that high pad level down and he just drove dudes off the line of scrimmage. I go back to the Florida State game. He did that several different times. I put a couple clips on Twitter of him doing that. Now, technique-wise, similar to Zudu, it's not complete, but that's not what you're going to necessarily get in the 5th round in terms of how they use his hand strike timing and things like that. I feel like he leans a little bit too much, and that's something that can definitely be exploited. But you want to talk about a moldable piece of clay that you can give to Bobby Johnson? I like it. I think Mckeithen is a solid addition at that point of the draft.
Yeah, and then finally we get to the final day 3 pick. Yeah.
Before we do that, though, Chris, sorry to cut you off. Kayla came in again.
Oh, Kayla.
If Daniel Jones doesn't work out, do you think we would be in the market for a quarterback with the cap space we'll have? I don't think we'll be bad enough to be in a position to draft the top 4. I don't think they'll be in the market unless Tyrod Taylor gets injured. Now, I think if Daniel Jones gets injured or he just absolutely falls on his face, you sign Tyrod Taylor for a reason, and I think that's going to be their contingency plan. And if not Tyrod Taylor, maybe Davis Webb. Let's go back to 2017 and rekindle this love.
I've always been a big Davis Webb fan. He was a guy I picked out that year as if he got a chance, he could be the surprise mid-round quarterback to develop, the kind of Dak Prescott type, just based on athletic tools, work ethic, football IQ. But, maybe just looking forward a little bit to next year, if, Daniel Jones just doesn't look like he justifies a $30 million check next year, if the Giants are not in a position where they can move up to draft a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, or I don't know, whoever happens to jump out at the college level this year. Maybe Spencer Rattler will finally put it all together. Who knows? We'd have to dial up Schofield for this one. But could the Giants get into the quarterback market? Maybe. They will have some pretty significant salary cap money next year. Cap's going to go up and a lot of bad contracts are going to be going off the books. So I could see that happening, but I think the Giants would prefer to draft one. I think they would prefer for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll to go out and get their guy.
Yeah, I was under the impression she's more so talking about in 2022, but definitely in 2023, they're going to be in the market for a quarterback if Daniel Jones doesn't work out. I was thinking mid-season or something like that. But they do still have Tyrod Taylor under contract for another year after this season. We also had Floyd Samuels say he loves the Daniel Bellinger pick. I like it a lot too. I still got a little bit of work to do, but from everything I've seen, it seems like a really nice fit for the Giants. We wanted a tight end who can run block. This guy seems to have that type of upside. Now, Chris, let's get into the 6th round pick. Final pick for the New York Football Giants. Somebody that I really like, somebody that's very versatile. He was a linebacker at Cincinnati. His name is Darian Beavers. He wasn't just a linebacker because this dude fit the Kyle Van Noy type of gigantic linebacker, align him on the edge, kick him inside sometimes. He tested a lot better than I felt like he looked on film. I think his play speed didn't really match his pretty damn solid testing at the combine, but nonetheless, here in the 6th round, I think this is excellent value.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little confused that he didn't go before this, but that happened throughout the draft where guys just mysteriously dropped, which that happens every single draft. Yeah, he was a guy we both looked at and said, this is a New England Patriot.
Yes.
Yeah, him and Kyle Phillips, those guys, they looked like they were born with Patriots jerseys on. But Beavers is going to be a Giant. I know our friend in Invictus, He is very happy right now. He might be Beaver's biggest fan out there. I think Beavers could be, if he can play in space, if he can handle NFL speed in space, he could be a guy we could look at as a potential heir to Blake Martinez, because he's got the size to thump inside. He's a smart linebacker. He's got plenty of experience there. So yeah, that could be something to keep an eye on.
It is, definitely. He's a little bit stiff moving backwards. He doesn't have the range that I would say Blake Martinez has. Obviously, he's not Blake Martinez. But I think when you put him in a system like Wink Martindale, who likes to move his defensive pieces around and use them creatively, somebody with edge experience, he can set a firm edge. He's just a big, hulking kind of dude. I think that this is a smart type of addition, somebody who will see the football field now. He won't be in an every down type of role, at least not early on, but you can put him next to Blake Martinez. You can put him as the Sam type of linebacker, drop him into boundary type of flats. Again, coverage-wise, it's not necessarily excellent, but I don't really have any complaints about that. And I think the overall just synopsis of the day 3 is there's a lot of developmental pieces here, a lot of guys to get excited about, a lot of guys we might not see too much in 2022, but come 2023, they're hopefully going to be ready, and the Giants will be in a better position to compete for the NFC East there.
Yeah, hopefully that is, or not hopefully, that is what the plan is right now. Joe Schoen talked after the draft, and he basically said, or he explicitly said, these mid to late round picks are about the future more than the present. They got guys they believe they can develop into being players for them. This is about building a foundation and also getting the kind of glue guys where they might not be superstars, but they're the types of players you need to fill out a roster that is competitive. And frankly, having a roster that is consistently competitive is something we haven't seen from the Giants in a long time. Something I was thinking about the other day is just, it has been so long since we have turned on a game and felt like the team could compete in all phases from the opening kickoff to the final whistle. And I remember back in 2011, the kind of motto among Giants fans was respect all, fear none. And right now it really feels more like, oh, I hope we figure out some way to win.
Well, I think the Giants are on the right path right now under Shane. They're building this roster and the philosophy that they're going to employ. So I'm excited about the direction. I'm also intrigued about the implementation of some of these guys. Some of the guys there's some question marks about how they're going to be used. I think that this new regime has everything dialed in and they have a plan. So I'm excited to see what that plan is. Chris, before we get out of here, you have anything else on day 3 picks?
The picks themselves, no, but I am interested to see what happens with the undrafted free agent class. That is, the Giants have one hell of a history with UDFAs. Everyone remembers Victor Cruz, but Sean O'Hara was an undrafted free agent. Richie Seibert was an undrafted free agent. Had Mark Herzlich, undrafted free agent, played for a long time with a steel rod in his leg. Spencer Paysinger, important important special teams player on that Super Bowl team. Henry Hynoski, the fullback, the Hinoceros. A whole bunch of really good players can come out of undrafted free agency, and that's what I'm looking for right now.
Yes, and I'm excited for that. And we're going to be breaking down the draft class in-depthly at Big Blue View, so everybody please check that out. We'll probably come out with a podcast on our feed going over the picks as well. Everybody, thank you for joining us here at Big Blue View's radio page, or YouTube page, maybe I should say. I am Nick Falato. That is Chris Pflum. Please head on over to Big Blue View and check out all of our work. We're putting in a lot of effort over there, and we hope that you guys enjoy it. Take care, everybody. Be well.